It's the Daily Dog.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Daily Doug. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I am very excited for today's piece. I actually am continuing a theme that we started yesterday, and that is songs about war and conflict. Yesterday we did Passchendaele by Iron Maiden, and I was very much taken with that piece. The maturity of the writing, the quality of the solos, the lyrics, the depth, and that's based on the Battle of Passchendaele from the First World War, and how that affects a person from a first person standpoint, right? And today I wanted to go back to Metallica and their song One. It's been a few weeks since I included Metallica on the channel. I remember doing Nothing Else Matters that they did with the San Francisco Symphony the second time around, more recently, and it got me thinking about that original S&M concert that they did with the symphony back in 1999 with Michael Kamen conducting. It has been, I think, 20 years since since I've seen that or listened to that album. So it's been a very long time. I'm familiar with the song a little bit, but it's been, again, a very long time since I've heard it. But I've been thinking about this and how conflict and war affects our soldiers, affects society, and just in a myriad of ways. And I wanted just to continue while I was kind of in that frame of reference. And this song struck me as just a very important and deep and emotional set of lyrics. And I wanted to look at, and song, by the way, the song effing rocks, right? So this song, One, it was released originally on the album And Justice for All in 1988. It was written by James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. And I read that the lyrics are based on this 1939 novel called Johnny Got His Gun, which was about World War I. Right? And the experience of a particular soldier who gets really, really badly injured. And yet, despite all of the odds that injuries like that would kill a person, he manages to continue to live and yet stays kind of in torment. And it's a really fascinating exposition into the mind of a person in the aftermath of that type of injury and that type of conflict that they've been involved in. This piece being built on the idea of that novel, it actually was turned into a movie in the early 70s. In fact, if you have seen the original video that Metallica put out for this song, it uses clips from the original movie from the 1970s based on the same book. And I was always wondering why they called it One. What does that mean? And I read something that this soldier is the one in a million, the one in a million who doesn't actually die, right? From these injuries. He loses his ability to hear or to speak, to see, to effectively communicate at all. And he fashions a way to communicate with his doctors by using Morse code. And he's basically, spoiler alert, asking them to help him end his pain. It's sad. It reminds us of the consequences of war, and it's deep and powerful. So I wanted to go back and look through and really pay homage to these lyrics and the historical intensity that they're based on, and to relive the wonderful orchestrations and performance between the San Francisco Symphony, a vaunted and worldwide respected symphony orchestra, and Metallica, one of the best bands of all time. And they're both from the same hometown, and they get together and they do these performances, and greatness happens, right? So let's go to it. Metallica, One, live with the San Francisco Symphony, the original OG performance back in 1999. Here we go. really great editing. I remember the throwback to the sounds of warfare. I can imagine what soldiers must go through if they've been in that sort of hot spot. You know, if they still hear that stuff in their head years after. It's the era before cell phones. You notice people holding up lighters, not cell phones. Sounds like B flat minor as a key center. But I think they're tuned down to make that a little bit easier. I think originally the song was in B minor and then later it flips to E minor. So I'm thinking they're in B flat and E flat, just using tuned down guitars. With the strings in the orchestra section would not tune down. They'd still play on their standard open strings that they're used to. It's what gives it that covered, longing sound in the strings.
I can't remember anything. Can't tell if this is true or dream.
I can't remember anything. I can't tell if this is true or a dream.
This terrible silence stops me. Now
Trauma.
that the war is through with me, I'm waking up, I cannot see that there's not much left.
There's not much left of me. Nothing is real but pain.
Now, hold my breath as I wish for death. Praise God with me.
Well, that's I forgot that cadence. This is a great cadence. He's melodically cadencing on D flat, which is the third of B flat minor, which would totally work, but I don't think they're playing a B flat minor chord there, at least not initially. It sounds like for a split second, they're approaching it in a weird way with some chromatics from the bottom, but there's this D flat major arrival. It's what it sounds like to me, and then a split second later, it goes back into the flatter keys, into B flat minor and other stuff that they were doing. I wonder, I mean, what that was on Hold My Breath as I Wish for Death, Oh Please God, Wake Me. So I think it was like just a last gasp of hopefulness or of longing to hold on to this life. And it's the switching back and forth between the major sound on that arrival and then being hauled back into the pain of the other key is an astute musical choice, really is.
Back in the room, it's much too real. Impulse life that I must feel. What can I look forward to reveal? Look to the time when I live. Fed through the tube that sticks.
One down to flat six.
Just
Back to
like
the
the
one.
words I'm not
Back to G flat. G
Tied to
flat.
machines that make me
A flat. E flat over A flat.
got this shit off from me. Hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh, praise God above me.
And it turns back around. Holy cool. I love that they planned the solos musically so that the orchestra can play along with some of them and reinforce the solo licks. And then Kurt gets to go off and do that. You hear the strings? They're all doing the same thing. All those instruments that are in the string section, they're all doing the same line, and that gives that section power over, or to compete with the loud amplification of the band. It's a really good way to help the orchestra fit in with the band like this. They've moved. Yeah, they started using some C flats and now they're up in E flat minor. Those horns. I cannot die. Trapped in myself, body my holding cell. Aching to just escape the pain. In this section, it sounds ominous because they're up in E flat minor now, and the chord is mainly E flat, but when they move, it's up a half step to, in this key, what we would call F flat. Ew. But it's a half step. It's Phrygian mode, which is basically a minor key, but you take the second scale degree and you lower it by a half step. So both the tonic note and the fifth note of the scale have upper half step neighbors that can make it really can make it just really intense when they go back and forth between what they're doing. Let's back up a little bit and see what they're doing now. Some of that, I think, was the Morse code that they were mimicking as well, of how the patient was trying to communicate with the doctors. Great orchestra bits. See the brass back in there? Awesome stuff. It's really remarkable. It's a great song, but and a great performance. The thing that strikes me, the thing that strikes me the most is how good the chart is for the orchestra. I don't think at this time, I don't think the guys at Metallica had any experience or very little experience performing with an orchestra. They're just used to going on stage and playing their own music their way. So giving control over to the maestro to start and stop and all that sort of stuff was probably something that they had to get accustomed to. And I'm just thinking, Michael Kamen was so good at coming up with these little orchestral licks that could improve and transform the original song into something new and just as wonderful but different, right, than the original. And the thing that he did that I think orchestrators and people who are writing can really clue into, if you need to keep the sound of the ensemble intense and driving, the best way to do that is wherever the note is, wherever the line is, pick the instrument that's in a heroic or intense or a relatively high part of their range. In the middle part there at the end where they were doing some of those solos, I heard some of those French horns, like en masse. There were probably 4 to 6 of them all doing the same line, and it was kind of hidden in the music. If the music is like has a texture that's really tall like this, the horns notes were right in the middle, but because they were kind of at the height of their own range, they were able to ring out and match the intensity of other notes. In choirs, it's the difference between giving a note to an alto versus a tenor, which is a lower voice part that has to have more intensity to sing a particular note. That sort of thing. If he was to have put clarinets on that same line, it wouldn't have sounded nearly as intense and heroic as those horns, and probably trombones right along with them. As they go. I would love to actually see if I could find a chart to see what it looks like, just to study it, because it really is a good chart. I have my memory held up okay. I remembered that being awesome, and it was great stuff. But man, intense and just sad for the character in that song. It makes me want to go back and watch that movie. I never have. That movie that the novel is based on, that was released I think in the early 70s. Maybe I can find that somewhere. Metallica always brings it. Great band, and it was fun to include them on the channel today. So thank you all for being with me, and we'll see you next time on another edition of the Daily Doug.